Hey, welcome to another week of Radio Melee. I am back from Evo and actually from Verdugo for those fortunate enough to make it to the 209th Verdugo to get to meet the illustrious Zeke, aka Big Z. I was there with Zeke, and we did film some crazy content. So a little bit of a sneak preview for a lot of y'all. This is something that we're going to start doing a little bit more, having some GG members come to some locals across the country. But I guess we can go ahead and plug. Do be on the lookout for that on the GG Melee YouTube channel. But besides that, we are here to largely talk about the rankings because we have, what is it, PP? It's the first, I believe, 20 slots.
Yeah.
On the summer
31
rankings,
through 50.
which is 20. 20 slots, right? It's 20.
20 or 19.
Well, but if you start with 50 and you go to 31.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Is that 20 or is that 19? Because 31 plus 19 is 20. Yeah, call in and let us know if 20. Wait, I can figure this out. No, because it's 31 to 40 is 10. And then 41 to 50 is 10. Right?
Oh, yeah, I think so. I'm looking
You see what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
And if they keep going at this rate, when they unveil 21 to 30, 11 to 20, and then 1 to 10, they'll have all 50 announced, not 49.
Right.
See?
Right. And I've cross-referenced this chat. While Toph was mathing, I was using my fingers and counting, and you know what? We arrived in the same place using different routes. It is in fact 20.
Okay. So it's 20.
Yes, sir.
Well, that's cool. Yeah, we're gonna have basically, I think we've got a lot of people who are ranked for the first time. We've got some fun and exciting people that I think probably no one thought would be on there, and probably the people themselves might not have even expected to be on there. Some fun surprises like Junebug's Donkey Kong. I think it would be cool if just so we can outline the way the show works. !Radio Melee in the chat, of course, to get in the Discord server and give us any questions and hot takes you have. But I think it'd be fun to talk about, first of all, speculations as to who's going to be ranked in the top 30 and any hot takes anybody might have about that, as well as, I'm kind of curious, what people think about like surprises as far as the rankings that have already been kind of unveiled. I was like, I thought Junebug was at number 45 with DK, solo DK was funny. But then again, I guess if you think about it, it is kind of like once you look at like the wins he's had, it's kind of like, yeah, I guess that actually just makes a ton of sense. And it's not surprising at all.
Well, what was his resume like, actually? I'm not entirely sure.
It's funny because I feel like his resume was all the matchups that... Here, let me pull it up. I think it'd be cool to... Actually, I think it'd be cool if our producer could even pull up some of the, existing blurbs and stuff like that. This is really handy. Look at this. Look at that. Wait, I gotta blow it up so I can make it big. I do know that, for example, Junebug had wins on like Malachi and Polish. I think it's really funny because when I think of making upsets with Donkey Kong, one of the last characters that I assume you get the upset on is Peach.
That's a hard matchup.
Is what I thought.
Yeah.
But maybe not. I don't know. I assumed it'd be all foxes and characters you can see to death.
Right.
Even like, not even. Especially Marth. I assumed you'd have a resume just like a star-studded Marth resume, and I do believe like for somebody like Ringler, who narrowly missed the cut for top 100 at the start of the year. I know Ringler, some of his first really big wins were Marth players, so it kind of makes sense there. We do a Frenzy from the UK at 44th place. We've also got some interesting UK news there because Frenzy has kind of had the torch passed to him, I believe, from Professor Pro, who's been the best player in the UK for, well over a decade at this point. Never really fallen off from the number one spot. Did lose a tournament to Frenzy, And in doing so, kind of pass the torch to Frenzy as the best UK player, because Professor Pro does kind of intend to just retire. So, F's in the chat for Aaron Thomas. We love you. And some other kind of fun surprises. I think CPU Zero was tweeting like, "Holy cow! I didn't even realize this was even like happening, or I didn't realize this was that I was kind of in the running for this." CPU Zero made a tweet to the extent of basically being incredibly surprised that they were ranked at all, which is kind of funny.
And they came in at 41, which is their
that's
first
a big
time being ranked, and that's a high debut.
That's a big number for aspiring Puff mains, right? Because Michael 41,000 made it debuted at the 41th spot, which is funny because it's 41,000. So
Right.
CPU Zero kind of picking up the slack from Michael there, which is pretty funny. Actually got a couple puffs in the top 40. We got SDJ from Texas. We got Khalid from San Diego. So a lot more puff representation, I would say, in the top 50 than kind of we've seen in a while. Considering, I think like, there was definitely a period where it'd be Hungry Box, and then you'd have Prince Abu somewhere in the top 50, and then it'd be like pretty much no puffs for quite a while. So, a lot of character variety actually. Some of the most character variety I think we've seen probably in the top 50 in like a long time.
Yeah. I mean, and Max Gannon part of that too. I mean, he's only moved down. He's only moved down 6 spots from switching to Ganon. You would think switching to Ganon a year later, it would take more of a hit, but he's been able to do great.
I think I even said on stream, I was like, because we were talking about Mech's rankings last year, and as a noted Ganon naysayer, I think I might have even said on stream, like, man, I don't think Mech's going to be top 50 again if he's switching to solo Ganon. I just don't think Ganon can do it. I don't think Ganon can perform at that level. But happy to be proven wrong, because Mech, if you look at Mech's resume, and I think with Mech, like, he's the kind of player that he probably could have even stood to go up if the rankings included online results. Because I feel like I've seen Mech beat players like I don't know if it was him that beat Crudo. I might be misspeaking. It might have been Akir Donkey Kong that beat Crudo. But I know Mech has beaten like top Sheik players. Like, he's gotten some crazy wins on Sheik players online where I'm like, just kind of flabbergasted that
matchup's so hard.
Like that. Yeah. It really is kind of honestly a little bit inspiring with like Mech's perseverance in the Ganon matchups that I feel are just not worth playing. They're such a struggle. And I think part of the reason I always count Ganon out compared to, like, let's say a character like Donkey Kong is I feel like Ganon's not hard to fight against in the way that, like, DK, I think there's things you got to kind of watch out for. Whereas like Donkey Kong, I feel like if you're a top tier, you just kind of play your game, and whatever you want to do in the matchup anyway is kind of just the stuff that's good against Ganon. But in spite of that, Mech is just taking names left, right, and center. Fourth place at Combo Breaker, beating a lot of really strong players. And Mech is always doing it against character matchups that I feel are just really, really, really rough. So yeah, I mean, I think 42 is like a really, really awesome placing for a player like him.
For sure.
Yeah, cool to see. Excited to see what he is kind of able to accomplish for the rest of the year. Any surprises for you?
Yeah, I think the CPU Zero one I was surprised by. I'm not surprised in retrospect by Moth's placing, but that's just one we haven't talked about yet. Moth coming in at 39, another high debut. She's been doing wonderfully. I'm trying to think if there's anything
I kind of think Moth can only go up, to be perfectly honest with you.
Oh yeah, very smart player.
I feel like Moth came out of nowhere, and like if not for the fact that Moth has basically only been traveling for like a month, like I feel like if you give a player like Moth like just more tournaments to potentially perform at, I feel like especially with, like, for example, the really, really wild Jmook win. I mean, that's probably easily the best win that probably anyone in this range has on anybody.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like, who else is taking a name like that? Is anyone in this rating range beating Cody or Zane? Probably not, right? So
fair point.
I guess Skurzo has a Jmook win. So
it's
a lot of Jmook wins. But
there you go.
Yeah. What do you think about number 38?
Number 38, Shroomed. I mean, what an interesting I think character in the history of Smash at this point. I mean, he wasn't, I guess, ranked last year, and he's coming back at 38, showing he's definitely still got a very respectable rank. And I think I was seeing some discussion about it, and people were saying, you just don't see too much of him, but then there's a qualifier for something, and he just always shows up. He always performs. He always qualifies, and so he is kind of, I think as time goes on, we only get more hidden bosses in Melee, and I mean, Shroom being ranked now, maybe a little less hidden, but no less boss-like.
Yeah. Yeah, I know 38 is not even, really a ranking that Shroom would necessarily be proud of. Obviously, Shroom has kind of, been a lot higher in the past, and Shroom's definitely not really traveling or grinding for the game the way that I think he used to, although he was at Battle of BC. But yeah, I think with Shroom, there's always that X factor. Like, he's so, and especially like with regards to how he is in friendlies versus tournament, I think he's the kind of player that really runs counter to what you expect from a lot of other players, where most people, can kind of pressure on themselves in tournament or choke a little bit. But with Shroom, like, he only plays at his best in tournament. Really funny player from that perspective, where, kind of defies a lot of the logic of tournament pressure and nerves and expectations and stuff that I think a lot of other people put on themselves. With Shroom, he's always playing at his absolute best if it's tournament, if there's something on the line. And I think that always gives him a kind of a leg up, especially on some of the young blood. Like, I feel like that really kind of sets him apart, and that's why he's always so dangerous, even if he hasn't necessarily been grinding super hard. I do know that, he's obviously working with SFAD and S2J now, and we were talking about LBC, and I thought it was kind of funny, like, he was saying that at NVIDIA for some time, and I believe it was like January, February, March, SFAT and S2J and him would do one serious best of five, might be first to five actually, first to five per day, where they would do like a round robin, and they were keeping track of who would win more, and they'd get a point, for every time you win a set, and then at the end of the month, I think they did kind of like a pot, like a prize pot that they would give to the person who had the most set wins, which is kind of cool because from that perspective, even if it doesn't seem like Shroom has really been grinding for tournaments, like, it shows that he's still alongside SFAD and S2J, like, they're still trying to stay sharp. They're still, even though obviously now they all have day jobs at NVIDIA, they're like still kind of grinding in that sense. And I feel like that's the kind of practice you might not expect somebody at that, at that like stage in their life to necessarily be doing, but it's honestly, like, even if you're not like solo practicing stuff, that's such a good form of practice to just be getting serious sets in with other top players on like a daily basis. I feel like that's actually more practice than probably a lot of people are doing, even people who are really trying to get good and be competitive. So I thought that was pretty cool to hear.
Yeah. And I think some people maybe wondering how can I fit Melee into my life in some ways, and maybe you have coworkers that are also into it, and this is another way you can kind of integrate it, and you can see it still kind of working and keeping your mind in it for these players. So I think that's a great story, a good reminder for a lot of people.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, I don't know. I'm really excited to kind of see what the rest of the ranks is going to shape out to look like. Of course, we've got I've always said that I think the rankings only get more and more accurate the closer you get to the top. Just because you have more data on the top players, there's a little bit less variance. Sometimes it can feel like number 50 is like, you look at like if it's like the top 100 or something, the 40 to 70 range will basically all be players who on any given day can beat each other. Whereas, the gradations get a lot more sharp, I guess, as you get closer and closer to the top.
Yeah.
So I am really interested to see kind of how things shake out at the top. I know there's some big question marks when it comes to players like Plup and Leffen, who have really, really, really good performances when they show up to things, but they haven't shown up to as much.
Right.
Like, especially Plup, right? Like, Plup feels like pretty kind of inactive when it comes to travel, but like went to CEO and just like cleanly
won.
Yeah, and like, even Jamek was there, Hungrybox was there, but they weren't even able to get to the top two. So because it was Plup and Wizzy in finals, which was kind of funny.
And Wizzy also hasn't been playing. He hasn't been traveling to tournaments, and he did the same thing, right? So that tournament kind of really illustrates your point, I think, so well.
Yeah, I think Wizzy is exactly probably, unfortunately, not going to get ranked. I feel like he is like I think he's only been to 2 tournaments. I think it was the Wisconsin one where he beat Ben and Spark, and I think he beat obviously he had Jmook at CEO. So I think Wizzy probably is not going to get ranked, but I think Plup and Leffen might, because I did see them on the panelist spreadsheet.
Oh, okay.
The results are on there alongside the other players in a way that indicates that I think they might actually get ranked.
Okay, question about that. Does the loss to Wizzy impact Jmook then? How does that work?
Yeah, I think it, I mean, I think it's going to count, but it's just like, just because you're not ranked doesn't mean that people don't know how good you are. It's kind of like how people, Axe was ranked 29th one year, but like, I don't think that necessarily meant that you were getting dinged super hard for losing to Axe, right?
Okay.
That's usually how you do it, right?
Sure.
I mean, think about a local PR. Like, there's going to be a lot of people on there that, imagine someone comes in from out of state and like wins the tournament. They're not on the PR, but that doesn't mean that they are a bad loss or anything like that. You know what I mean? Like that just means that that's somebody who you're not really considering to have a placing of their own, but that doesn't mean that,
Yeah, I guess
that doesn't mean it's a bad result if you lose to them.
Right. So I guess as a panelist, it's kind of an interesting how you evaluate that.
Yeah, and I think that also for there's another big question mark when it comes to the top placings, which is going to be Mango. I don't really know what people are going to do when it comes to the Dr. Mario results or the.
Oh yeah. Oh, that'll be a fun discussion.
Yeah. I don't know. I have this sense that the sorts of people that, nothing against those sorts of people, don't get me wrong, but I sort of have this sense that the sorts of people that do that become panelists for rankings, I have this sort of sense that those sorts of people think it's funny or behooving or something to count the sets where Mango's playing Dr. Mario as if they were legitimate. So I have a bad feeling for the Mango Nation that he is actually going to be impacted by those, but I don't know. I did rankings on my own screen. I did my own top 10 list, and when I did it, I didn't count Mango's Dr. Mario sets. I just didn't think it, like we don't count Zane's Don't Test Me sets, but then like the logic there is that Zane changes his, like people are like, yeah, but Zane changes his name to Don't Test Me to indicate that he's playing Roy, and then Mango doesn't change his name to something, to Doc Lee. Like he's not in the bracket as Doc Lee. And I'm like, that sounds arbitrary. Right? Like who decided that you need to change your username for your set to not count? You know what I mean? Like
Sure.
I don't know. That sounds like something you made up. So to me, I just don't care if Mango goes Doc and loses to Mateo. Like I don't think that makes him any worse of a player. It's like
so you're seeing Mateo's plus 53 here, and you think that is that an indication to you that is the direction the panel has moved then?
Oh, I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know what the rest of Mateo's I don't know what the rest of Mateo's results this season look like, to be honest with you. I don't know how much he was traveling or I mean, I think it's a little bit. Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't bump someone up 53 spots solely for beating Mango's Doc.
Sure.
Right? I mean, where's Taj? I don't see Taj. Like you've got to have some other I'm even going to look it up. SSBM rank 2023. I want to see what they wrote for Mateo, because I assume Mateo has a bunch of other good results.
Yeah, I've been seeing him improving, taking some names. I'm just
he beat at the Michigan regional body. He beat KJH, Skurzo, and Ginger. So I think alone.
Oh yeah, that'll do.
Mateo beat Meds at Genesis 9.
Oh, that's all really good.
So I think all of that, is, to me, that's all way more impressive than beating Mango's Dr. Mario. You know what I mean? Like
very good.
Those are all very real. Not that Mango's Dr. Mario isn't sick. It's just that I just feel like there's no question of competitive integrity when you talk about the KJH win or the Skurzo win or the Ginger win or the Meds win. It's like all the players were trying their hearts out, and to me that's just more impressive. But I mean, don't get me wrong, Mango's Doc is very good.
It is,
yeah. But before long, I think we want to get into the community voice, but I do want to encourage people. We're trying to get 1 or 2 more questions in. So if anybody's got any hot takes or questions or anything to give us, !Radio Melee to get in the Discord server, and you can submit your questions in the Submit Topics Here channel. So yeah, go ahead and do that. And of course, if you are a audio listener or if you're tuning in on YouTube, we do this every single Tuesday. Although I think we're going on a hiatus soon. I think after the month of August. So don't show up in September wondering where we are, because I think we're going to take like a month off or something. But on my channel and PPMD's channel on Tuesdays, 3 p.m. Pacific and 6 p.m. East Coast time.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well said all around. Things are always happening here in Radio Melee. And another one of those things is the community voice. We have a couple answers lined up. I believe it was from Amsa's question. I will be corrected if I'm wrong about that. But I believe it was the question about best dual main combination. So that is what we have on screen here. I'm looking through these answers very quickly. I like how blown up the bottom one is compared to the other two. I think that's kind of funny. But we have the first answer coming out from Dots Mike 8937 saying it's probably just Fox and Marth for the best dual main combination. Fox takes care of Sheik, Falcon, Yoshi. Some think these are losing for Marth and the low tiers easily, and Marth takes care of the rest. The only problem matchup then is the Marth Ditto. Another way to look at this is, who would Zane pass his controller to for a guaranteed super major win if he could? Probably Cody or Hbox, which is why I think Marth Puff might be another good answer.
Yeah, I think Marth Puff also makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah, you talked about that before, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Zane was even literally considering it.
He was.
Like, that was actually one of the characters where Zane was like, I think before Ices, like, because he didn't want to do Fox, because I think he kind of recognized that, like, you need to be, you know, one does not simply switch to Fox and beat Jmook, right?
That is a lot of work.
So it's like, it's the kind of thing where, like, his Fox is obviously good. It's not like it's a I mean, it's probably one of his best characters. It might literally even be his second best character, but Fox is the kind of character where that doesn't cut it. Like, you're not going to surprise anybody. And I think that's the problem with using Fox as a secondary. So to me, it's actually like, yeah, I think the whole thought experiment of passing the controller to Cody, like, to me, that makes sense. But I think for on a practical basis, if you're already a Marth main, there's the additional question of, like, well, from a practical level, which character can I ramp up the quickest? And that's actually going to have the element of surprise. Like, there's kind of more going on than just, because, like, yeah, if you could play Zane like Marth and Fox like Cody, like, I mean, you're gonna win every tournament. But it's really, 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 really hard to get there. Whereas some of these other dual mains feel a little bit more like practical, I guess. But yeah, I mean, that's the fun part about this question, is you can kind of interpret it however you want. Austin Moon 2626 says Port 4 Fox is always his best main. However, Port 1 Blue Fox is perfect handling the set when you use RPS. That's why I think dual maining Port 4 Blue Fox and Port 1 Blue Fox is the best combo. It sounds like Austin Moon 2626 plays Blue Fox. That's kind of what I'm getting out of this.
I'm not opposed to that answer. Because again, this is a little rejection of the question, saying, you know what if we didn't dual main and we just had one? And I think, personal view between Fox and Marth especially, but certainly a lot of these high tier characters, you can do it on your own. You don't have to do it. You don't have to dual main, which I think is, a reasonable thing to kind of keep in mind in a world where so many players are picking up another character. So a little tongue in cheek, but not an unreasonable answer to the question. And then we have David Meir 9890 coming in with our last answer, saying Marth for Spaceys and FD, Puff for Floaties and Dreamland, and I'd be absolutely terrified. So we have 2 votes for Marth Puff here in the community voice. Very interesting. Very interesting. I don't, we haven't seen.
I think it goes both ways too with Marth Puff, because not only do I think Puff is really good for Marth, I think if you think about it the other way, I think Puff is really good for. Wait, which way did I say it? Let me start the sentence over, because I forgot what I was saying at the beginning of the sentence.
You got this.
Not only do I think Puff is very good for a Marth main, I think Marth is very good for a Puff main, right? Because like, your worst matchups by far are like Fox on FD and Fox on Stadium. And FD and Stadium are really good for Marth. So not only is it a really good, I think, character compliment, it's also a really good stage compliment, right? So I think it's just so yeah. I think it just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, there aren't too
many.
many.
See what I'm saying?
There aren't too many. There aren't too many holes in it. It's a strong one, and I think, I think their skills can kind of transfer to each other pretty well. I mean, both very heavily reliant on the spacing. Maybe Marth's ground movement and Puff's air movement might be a little bit harder to get down, but I mean, the idea of just spacing really heavily being so important with both characters, I think can be really helpful. And neither are require as much investment as Fox, which I think can be useful too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think it's an interesting question, and I think it's an interesting window into how people are kind of viewing characters right now, and I think this is why questions like these are so fun. But hey, great answers all around. Good discussion on that, and I think we're about ready to go ahead and get in our first caller. We've got a couple lined up here, and our first one, this is a returning caller. I'm remembering now, but your name has an X in it, and therefore it
It
terrifies
does.
me.
Scary. Woo. Toph got it right first time. Let's see if you can do it again.
Was
Yeah,
it?
Rumaru.
There we go.
Oh, Rumaru. I was gonna go Romaru.
Aren't you from the South? PP?
No. Well,
I am from the South. Yeah.
Yeah, isn't that like isn't that a common? What am I thinking of? Sioux City? I guess that's Iowa. Iowa's not really the South.
No, it's not really the South.
Anyway,
in a lot of like Southern and French languages, they do kind
Yeah,
of just
yeah.
drop X's. So
that's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Isn't Rue used a lot in that like Cajun? I don't know. Whatever. Well, what do you got for us today?
hi, hello, it's me. I'm back. So Evo just happened. It's
Yeah.
pretty cool. Congrats to Leffen for getting his second Evo championship.
Let's go, Melee.
Yeah. Well, yeah, playing Happy Chaos and Guilty Gear. It got me thinking about things, back in the old days, back when Melee was at Evo.
Yeah. Totally.
And I remember when it was announced that Melee was getting dropped, like it felt like the sky was crashing, which is weird to think about considering how we had the whole drama with Beyond the Summit and Panda Global. So
yeah.
And we're still going strong, but it got me thinking, this phrasing this is going to be weird. Have you ever played that really old internet game? It was a really cheap internet flash game where it was like, would you push the button, and it gives like a pro and a con.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
So imagine this is like a push the button situation where you push the button and Melee is back at Evo. We're back as a main event at Evo.
Cool.
Con, wobbling is legalized everywhere because it was legal at Evo, and as I remember correctly, that was a big precedent as to why we even allowed wobbling to begin with, because it was legal at Evo. And you can push it or not. You can spiral this into a conversation about Melee has come so far. Even in it was 2019 when both of these things happened, so only 4 years ago. And I remember there were players like Slug who's like, yeah, I don't even know if Ices need wobbling. I think they're fine without him. So
yeah.
Do you think we need Evo? Do you think wobbling legalized would be that big of a deal? Just something fun to bounce off of you guys.
You go first, PB.
Okay, I will go first. Well, first of all, I think Evo would be really good for us. Clearly, as it helped us out so much the first time, and I mean, there were, well over 100,000 viewers, and I think over 150,000 viewers on the Street Fighter 6 stream by the end. But of course, doesn't mean we would get that, but maybe over 100,000. That'd be very nice. And get it. And I think an underrated aspect of being at Evo is there was this intermingling of Melee and FGC in kind of a cool way that I think it's not as prominent now, which is a little sad, but it's something that I think was also really nice, and I think is more potential for more there. So I think and the cost of wobbling, to me, not really that high relatively, because I mean, I think it would be hard for newer players, yes, but and I don't really. This is not exactly. This is like almost a pro in a way, but I think wobbling was something that people talked about so much. It was a very common thing. It was, for better or worse, it kept people engaged with the game. And so wobbling coming back is not even entirely a con in that sense. No news is bad news. Obviously, there are exceptions to this, but wobbling I don't think is one of them. And so I think even though it would be hard on some players, and I think this would be a barrier for new players, and it would there would be some issues for sure. I think this is overall a not upsetting button press to me. However, I'm also curious, if Nintendo goes, okay, well, I didn't like that you did that, and then we, Evo's gone, and then I guess we just go back and get rid of wobbling. Do we unpress the button if Nintendo gets involved? It's a weird,
Wait, why would
so
Nintendo
maybe
get involved.
Well,
because they don't like wobbling.
No,
like,
no,
that's a glitch.
Sakurai's like, I don't know about all this, guys. This wasn't what I was thinking of.
Not developer intent. Not developer intent.
Yeah,
get it out.
Yeah,
no, I was thinking maybe if we push the button, we somehow avoid them going in, and then they're like, oh, wait a minute, how did you get back in there? The Sony runs this thing. All right, get out. That's just because we're just in the hypothetical world, we somehow get away with it, but then we don't or something. I don't know, but just having fun with the hypothetical. But yeah, maybe if we only go back once, then we would have just a little bit of wobbling and a little bit of Evo, and then we go out and then we kind of get like kind of the best of both worlds, I suppose. But I don't know how it would play out if we went back forever and wobbling was back forever. Maybe long term, that's a whole can of worms. I don't know, but it's a neat question.
I'm pressing the button. I'm pressing the button even if Evo. I think we should just legalize wobbling. I'm straight up. Here's the thing. I played Moth, and every time Moth grabbed me at Combreaker, Moth killed me. Pretty much. So I don't even think it matters that much. I think it only matters against Peach players and Puff players, and I think they should suffer a little bit more anyway. So I'm pushing
Peach main, by the way.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
Well, those Puff players, those Puff players really, they're
yeah, they can go. That's
I mean, you're not supposed to be getting grabbed by ices anyway, right? That's what people say.
I love being up in the air. It's great.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've just seen, I remember the discourse around wobbling about how is it healthy for the scene to have at all?
Yeah.
There was that huge debate about it, and that's why this really resonated to me as a question.
I think the only time I've really been like, man, wobbling is really ruining it for people was that one shine where I think New England had it really rough because for some reason something in the water in New England is such that when you learn Melee, I guess you just I don't know what it was, but basically they had so many Ices players, and there was a shine where there were 9 Ices in top 48 or something. And I remember looking at the bracket and I was like, okay, this is too much. And I was like,
we would probably get that back if that.
I don't know. But I've seen the other side of it now, and I've seen all the Ices quit, basically. Except, there's a couple. Obviously, there's JJ Anders, Lunar Dusk. There's obviously Moth. And of course Slug. So yeah, there's really good Ices players today. I largely think that I don't know. I think that wobbling in a practical sense is, how do I put this? I've played bananas in tournament back when wobbling was legal and when wobbling wasn't legal. And I remember I almost beat him one of the times that wobbling was legal. And then I played him again when they banned wobbling and he 2-0'd me. And I was like, whatever, right? I think that on a practical level, it's it's really easy to kind of hyper focus on it and stuff. But I don't think it ruins the game on a practical perspective. I think that a lot of matchups don't even change that much. If you're a Sheik player, it really doesn't change that much at all. Sheik should just die regardless. And I haven't even talked about the Evo side of the question yet. Yeah, I just think that I'm even being a little bit selfish here, but I think my favorite tournament, obviously I just got back from Evo. It was one of the best tournaments I've been to in a long time. And I just think my favorite tournaments and my favorite era of Melee was when Melee was predominantly run at FGC tournaments. I just would rather watch Marvel than Smash 4. You know what I mean? Obviously now it would be, I'd rather watch Street Fighter than ult, I guess. So this is just me being selfish, but I'm pressing the button, so hey.
Yeah, I guess the question within this question is, obviously Evo is a huge draw. but it was more like, 4 years down the line, we've had enough time to really look at Wobbling and discuss Wobbling to death and how it was like back then. And it seems like more and more we're getting to a consensus of it wasn't that bad. So I don't know.
Right.
That's
although it is easy, don't get me wrong. Hindsight's always 20/20, and it's also really easy to say that now. Now that we've seen the dark side of it, which is a lot of ice climbers quit. Like I think there's good and bad, and we're never gonna have a solution that's like that fully appeases everybody when it comes to the wobbling thing. But I mean, if you're accounting for Melee getting into Evo, then I think, at that point you just press the button. I think that can only really be a positive. And Evo's even in terms of like from a practical perspective, in terms of the tournament, Evo's with the new management and stuff. I think most people would tell you that Evo's in a much better. It's just a much better tournament now than it kind of ever was before. Obviously you got Rick the Hotto, who runs Combo Breaker at the helm, and Curly, who's one of the best kind of bracketologists and bracket runners involved, and scheduling's a lot better. Like there's a ton of room. It doesn't feel as cramped as it used to, even with 7,000 entrants for the Street Fighter bracket. It didn't feel overwhelmingly crazy or cramped or anything. The
That's
line
amazing.
getting in was surprisingly smooth. The line looked really long at first, but then it moved really, really fast. So it's I think it's just a much better tournament than it used to be back when, Mr. Wizard was at the helm. So I just think there's a lot of positives. Yeah. So I'm definitely pressing the button. Almost on both fronts. Yeah. I do feel a particular what's the word? Sympathy, I guess, for what we did to the Ices Nation. Kind of watching half of them quit overnight was just kind of sad. So it'd be cool if some of them came back.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think I'll go one step further. I will even go so far to say that I think legalizing wobbling will make Icy's results worse in the short term.
You think we're just gonna get flooded with
No, I think that no, I don't mean that. That makes sense too, but I was gonna say I think people don't practice the matchup right now. And I remember back in 2016, 2017, there was a period where I was practicing the Nana-kill 30 minutes a day. Maybe not, like 15 minutes a day, let's say.
Yeah, it's still
I haven't thought about the Ices. Yeah, I mean it is, but I just don't think the Ices matchup was on the forefront of anyone's mind anymore. And I just think people used to be better at it. Right. By and large. I think that literally if you unban wobbling, I think it becomes way less of a surprise matchup, and I think a lot of top players would actually just get better at the matchup. I know that's a shocking take. But I think that for the Ices, I think that it being a surprise matchup and being a matchup that people don't prepare for is actually, especially in matchups like Sheik, Fox, Fast Fallers, where, they obviously have a really big punish game off grab anyway. I would go so far as say I wouldn't be surprised if people labbing the matchup because wobbling got unbanned would actually, in the short term, hurt overall Icy's tournament performance.
Well, maybe in the future we'll see a rematch of Hungry Box versus Chudat, but that's all I had.
That'd be hype.
So,
thank you so much for calling in. Any shout outs for us on your way out today?
Yep. Still got my good friends Judas and Stabbed. They're cool as hell. Shout out to the Melee Peach Discord and Verbose, who called in 2 weeks ago when Triff was on. Mm-hmm. Shout out to everyone behind the scenes who helped run this, and you two for hosting.
Thank you.
Thank you for calling in.
Have a good night.
Good one.
Well, I think we got time for at least one more caller. We're gonna get one more caller on, and it is going to be Huff. I think Huff with 3 Fs. Crazy.
Welcome to the show, Huff. Where are you calling in from, and what's your question for us today? Also, okay. Never mind. You're not muted.
Nice.
Whoa. Oh. Yeah, I'm calling in from Seattle.
Ah, nice city.
Lovely.
Yeah. So my question. So I had the pleasure of being a panelist on this past top 50 rankings, and my question is about how we should evaluate results. So should the rankings incentivize player behavior? Do we want to incentivize things like attendance, or should we be more evaluation based? So we just evaluate the results as they are. I think we've heard some different perspectives, right? Like I think Swift was talking about how it kind of sucks that he can't go to a lot of events and he feels like he's being punished for it in attendance. And I think opposite perspective is maybe Mango, where Mango's like, if you just don't have enough, like just stay off the rankings. We only want people who are really, really going to events. So I'm curious what your perspective is. Like, should we be rewarding like things that we want to see in the scene, or should we just be like, however you did this season is how you did, and we're just gonna rank you accordingly?
What do you think, PP?
Well, first of all, just to clarify, I thought I'd seen Mango's perspective on this on Twitter, and I thought he said that he only wanted attendance to be more strict for the top 10. And if that's the case, I think that adds some nuance to this discussion, right? Because
yeah, but Triff is borderline top 10.
Yeah, it doesn't solve the problem for sure. And so I think, as a blanket thing, I am not particularly interested in trying to incentivize attendance just because people approach this stuff differently. We could have, I don't know, a certain minimum maybe of tournaments we'd like to have people to get. This would be different if there was a circuit too. But
how does Mango want to do it? What was his suggestion?
I believe it was something like he didn't specify a specific number, but people that were going for the top 10 needed to have a certain number of tournaments to be on there, and otherwise they wouldn't. And I guess they wouldn't be ranked in the top. They just wouldn't be ranked, is my understanding.
Oh, well, we already do that, right? There's already an activity cutoff. Does Mango just think it should be higher?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, there is an activity cutoff, but I think people have talked about maybe Plup doesn't have a lot of results. Maybe some other players don't have a lot of serious results. I think Mango was saying that like he shouldn't be ranked, that Plup shouldn't be ranked, that Leffen maybe shouldn't be ranked.
Wait, Mango saying he himself shouldn't be ranked?
Yes.
Mango went to a lot.
Yeah, I thought he went to a good bit.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Mango went to the majority of majors. Yeah, I don't know. Here's the thing. Can't make everybody happy, and in fact, you can't make anybody happy. So I think you just do the rankings, and what people get is what they get. That's my take. We've had to live with it forever. Everybody gets disappointing placing sometimes. It sucks to suck. You know what I'm saying? That's where I'm at on it.
I think, something I like about you calling in and there being a panel is that people will approach this differently. I think there's validity to the perspective of let's incentivize attendance, right? Because it means we're having more people push narratives. We're having more people go to stuff, get more accurate results, things like that. I think that's a great perspective. At the same time, I also think it's totally valid and fair to say let's have maybe a low minimum or no minimum, and because you want to account for people like Triff, who Toph mentioned earlier, having a hard time traveling, or people that maybe life circumstances or just their own personal pace or whatever just are not as interested in going into as many things, but they're still performing well. Maybe it's harder to evaluate them, but we still want to give our best effort for those people too, just for having a different pacing, especially with no circuit. I think that's totally fair. So I think, and when you try to say one is better than the other, I think it's a real problem because again, I think people are just going to function different in this environment, and maybe and like Toph said, there's not a way to make everyone happy. There's not a way to make it so every player can be comfortable going to X number of events because things happen, or players that are going to more are maybe feeling punished or whatever, or they go to ones where they're certainly the number one seed more times and they have more chances to get upset, and they're like, well, how is this fair? And that's a totally valid thing as well. And I don't think there is one right answer for these things. But again, I think a great way to just recognize that there are different ways to evaluate it, different ways to solve it, is to have these discussions, have a panel, and try and work it out and see kind of where everything kind of ends up. And usually, people, there's not, especially like Toph was saying earlier, there's only so much variance, especially among the higher level players, the top 10, top 20-ish, there's going to be only so much variance you're going to have either way you look at it, I imagine, where people are still going to roughly end up, more or less in a, within a few spots variance. And so that's not so bad at the end of the day. That's kind of the nature of rankings.
I think something you can do to kind of for Mango's point is I think something that feels kind of bad is when someone like Plup, he's got, I think, the same amount of tourney attendance as Leffen, but whereas Leffen went to the biggest things, right? Leffen went to 3 tournaments. I think it was 3, right? Whatever. Leffen went to tournaments where everyone was there and everyone basically had a shot at beating him. Whereas I think for Plup, he went to I don't know, it was a major upset or I don't remember, but basically CEO wasn't really a super major level. There wasn't. I don't know. Right. I think even the ultimate scene has kind of figured this out because they've kind of assigned they've got some kind of criteria for what actually counts as I think they call it S tier or whatever tournament. Point is, they have some kind of designated criteria, and I don't think you need to think too hard about this. I think we basically know what the super majors are. You can even do something let's say 4 out of the last rankings top 10 need to be at the tournament, and then it counts for super major status or major, let's say major status, whatever. And then maybe you basically do it so that it's you need to attend a certain number of majors to be considered for the rankings I don't know. That would kind of solve the problem from the perspective of somebody like Plup, whose results feel kind of all over the place because it's he doesn't have that many sets with a lot of the top players, and it's kind of a big question mark as to kind of where to put him and stuff. Because I think no one's really complaining that I feel like people are complaining more from that perspective, whereas with Leffen, it kind of feels right. Leffen definitely went to LACS and got a bunch of sets with a lot of the top players and and Battle of BC obviously was a tournament where everybody was there, right? So that would be one way to do it. I think the ultimate community might literally be doing that. So that could be one thing that kind of potentially sort of improves this problem. But I do kind of want to reiterate that I think at the end of the day, you're never going to make everybody happy, and you're especially not going to make top players happy because top players are never happy because they're playing competitive video games and basing, basically basing how they feel on how they performed at the last tournament. And that's kind of how it's just going to be at the end of the day. So you shouldn't try to make everybody happy and except yourself.
I would say to add on to that last part, I think some people may be upset kind of regardless of whatever the panel chooses to do. And I think that can sometimes be directed at the panelists unfairly. And so I just want to say thank you for your service.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Putting names on a list was one of the hardest challenges of my life, and I'm glad it's being appreciated. All my hard work deciding whether Mango's Dr. Mario wins count or not, being properly seen.
Yeah.
Yes, and I mean, depending on your tolerance for hate, that is actually kind of difficult. But it sounds like you're handling it fine, and so I salute you for that. But yeah, no, it's a difficult topic, and I think it's one we were probably going to be possibly even revisiting next week by the time the full rankings list are out. But it's an important question, and I think. Oh, I'm just remembering this because I was talking about this on stream yesterday. The almighty algorithm will not save us. We have had various people from Melee Stats on, and there is a wonderful blog post that some of them are written up that is very long that explains, various algorithms and how they work and how ultimately it comes down to human input anyway. So it will not solve this problem. It's an algorithm for an algorithm is the same problem, I promise you. So, we are stuck trying to sort this out as best we can because at the end of the day, we value different things, and I think that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, I think a lot of people who talk about this may not necessarily have a data science background. I do have a bit of a data science background, and I've worked. It's a friend of mine who's a PhD student in data science, and he actually worked on his own version of rankings, and they even managed to be a little bit better some of the stuff we've seen elsewhere. And even so, like we still agree, like these definitely should not be the rankings at any point, right? And the more people know about data science, I find, the more they're actually opposed to algorithmic rankings, which you think is a little bit ironic.
Yeah.
Huh. Interesting. No, I had not.
And
heard
why is that? I mean, because I mean, I think is it largely a sample size issue?
So so sample size is definitely relevant. I think so. What I found and what Analog, he's my friend who does this. What we've kind of found is that it's not just sample size, but it's also like regional clustering, right? And you think about like everyone on the East Coast, most of their matches are going to be against other East Coast players, right? Everyone on West Coast, most of their matches are going to be against other West Coast players, right? So people point back to like the Hanky Panky example of like someone who was really, really overinflated. That's because he basically stayed in Ohio, right? And was constantly beating everyone in Ohio, right? So not many rankings says
who was he
he's
beating
never
that
been
drove
defeated.
up his rating? Who was he beating that drove up his rating?
I don't know the specifics of Hanky Panky's history, but I think he was beating like everyone except Prince Abu, whoever lives in that area, pretty much. So the idea is that like if you have someone who kind of stays in their own pool and they're like super, super dominating like everyone immediately around them and going to a lot, even if they go to like a major and they lose a couple times, like the rating is already pretty vastly inflated, right? Because you have to start everyone at some point. If you assume everyone's starting from the same place, it's like, oh, well, he just beat a ton of average people and maybe lost once. So he still must be really, really good. Even if, you may say, well, like, fiction's lost more, but fiction lives in like SoCal where like, everyone's quite good and they're all like competing against each other a lot. So yeah, we looked at this on more of a regional scale, right? Because you can kind of reduce this to the frame of New England and see like, oh, like Connecticut players are like constantly like trading sets, and then there's like Lewis in Vermont who's like sweeping Vermont all the time, and then the rankings like vastly overvaluing how good Lewis is compared to like someone like Casey from Connecticut.
Is there any way to adjust for that?
So yeah, that's what Analog's project mostly looked at, is specifically adjusting like for that effect. And again, the results are like marginally better overall. Like they do better than like the other leading algorithms like TrueSkill or Glyco or Elo. But even then, like you can notice a lot of discrepancies, right? And I think part of the problem is just that if your end goal is to say we want a ranking that rewards things that we think like people in the scene value, an algorithm is never going to do that unless like your algorithm is just what people in the scene value, which is a panel, right?
It is a panel, and it's much less, and then you don't have to, do all that work to set it up. You just have the people do it.
Right. You don't need a PhD in data science from Harvard or whatever. You can just go ahead and like actually ask people what they think. And in my opinion, that's probably always going to be the better option.
Interesting.
Can I ask a weird question?
Yeah, hit me.
What's the problem? Like, what's... You see what I'm saying?
The problem...
What is the problem right now? What problem are we trying to... It sounds like we're talking like there's a problem, but I don't really understand what the problem is.
So I think there's a couple problems. I think the biggest problem, and I think this is what I called it last time about, is player anxiety, right? I think players don't know what to expect in terms of like, like whether they're doing the right thing to move up and like improve their Melee career, or whether they're just kind of fumbling around in the dark. And I think that's scary for players. That's my own personal theory, right? Having like talked to people and having seen what people were saying. So I think everyone is kind of looking for like an answer to their own personal anxieties. And I think that's manifesting in terms of like what they say should or shouldn't count. Like someone might say like regional shouldn't count. I go to a lot of regionals and they're not where I'm playing my best, so I don't want those to count. And someone might say I think you should reward attendance because I attend a lot, and I don't know why I'm attending all this if it's not going to help my ranking in the end, right? So I think people, again, they want this very clear set of criteria. They want to know like I can do X, Y, and Z, and that's what it takes to move up in the rankings. But I think the thing is, right, that's always going to kind of run counterintuitive to the idea of a panel where we're saying we value like different perspectives. And
exactly.
Right. And it's really hard to say to someone like, well, you should just focus on doing you and doing your best, and that will help you move up, because that's kind of feels like an unsatisfying answer.
Satisfying for me, but not for a lot of people.
I have an unfortunate take on this. I don't think there's anything. I don't think that there's anything that anyone can do that is going to solve player anxiety. I think players are going to be anxious no matter what. I don't know. I think we kind of know who's going to be number one this season. You know, like I think, well, maybe not, but I kind of think that at the end of the day, yeah, I don't know. I think you're right. I think that, like as long as you've got different perspectives, people are going to value different things. You know, I think that, you know, for some people, Plup and Wizzy going to CEO and not having had a bunch of preparation or whatever, and then performing as well as they did, beating the players they did, is really special and impressive. And I think for other people, you know, that shouldn't be rewarded because it's an outlier or whatever. I think people have all these different perspectives, and I think competing is nerve-wracking and anxiety-inducing, and I don't think that there's anything you can. There's no way you can tweak the sliders on the ranking criteria to make that go away. I think people just, yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. I just don't really, I don't really see this problem going away with anything short of yeah, some magic robot overlord that has the perfect algorithm that's perfectly catered to the melee scene and totally understands our player distribution, and you know, that's completely infeasible. So someone's not going to be happy no matter what happens is my take. But
yeah, Mango suggested we just get like some really, really smart guy and then just have him rank everyone, and you just complain to the guy. You say, guy, why didn't you rank me higher?
Yep.
Yeah, I think
that would work.
Yeah, I mean, because I think the amorphous, nebulous melee stats boogeyman a little bit harder to be mad at than the one guy. You know, kind of like how Tafo was the
really
one guy.
Resilient guy. I mean, this is like Gandalf. He's been alive for 4,000 years.
Okay,
and magic spells.
Yeah, maybe we really respect that guy. That would help a lot.
Yeah.
That's the brilliance of it. You know, it's death by firing squad. You don't know who fired the bullet that made you like rank 38 or whatever. You just know that it's one of these amorphous blob of players, and then you can just diffuse the responsibility among them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is great for me, honestly. You know,
yeah, it is. Well, you've called in, so you've made yourself a little more known. Good luck to you.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Please call back in again, though. This was a fun discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been lovely.
Well, unless there's anything else, I'm glad you called in, Huff. Thank you so much. And any shout outs for us on your way out today?
Yeah, shout out to Melee Stats. About to take a lot of heat in the next coming days. But they do great work. Like honestly, like I've worked on rankings production in the past, like 2017, 2018-ish era. I was doing some stuff on production side. It's a pain in the butt. So I don't envy them getting pictures of all the players, like getting like finding out like every state where everyone currently is, compiling all this stuff. It's a lot of work, and they're honestly doing a great job of it. So shout out to them.
For sure. Well, thank you so much.
Gotta love Melee Stats.
Let's go Melee Stats. All right, have a good rest of your day.
All right, thank you.
See ya. All right, well, that looks like that is going to be it for our callers. But if you'd like, Toph, I can suggest a question for our community voice, and we can be on our way.
I was going to ask. Okay, sure.
Oh, go ahead. No, please.
No, I was going to ask if people have suggestions for the preceding, or sorry, answers, suggestions for the preceding question. Curious if there's any, I don't know, if there's any geniuses out there that think there's a better way to do what we're currently doing. Because I'm stumped.
Yeah, if anyone has any solutions to this situation, we could.
And that's kind of why I wanted to clarify what is the situation. What's the problem we're actually trying to solve? To me, it kind of seems like we kind of know, most people kind of know what's going on, and I don't know. Like I'm not sure I'm not totally sure there's one ubiquitous. I don't know. Do a lot of top players agree that this is a problem that needs solving? I'm not even really sure.
Yeah, it's interesting. Getting
I guess what I'm saying is I mostly only see Mango saying anything about this. Right. I don't see Zane or Cody saying, I don't know where I'm going to. There's some sub problems, right? Cody and Aklo sometimes talking about whether they think regionals or locals or whatever should count, or this, that, or the other. But I'm not sure that it's a is there some consensus among the top players that there's a problem statement that needs to be solved, and if so, what is that problem statement? I'm not 100% sure. Yeah. But if anyone out there knows and has suggestions about it, then I'm very curious what people's takes and what people's solutions are.
Yeah, maybe someone can get in there and kind of do like a survey of the top 20 or so and kind of get some depth and some statements and some ideas on that. Yeah,
people's dissatisfactions with the rankings, you know what I mean?
Or their satisfactions, if they should find any.
Zane will have satisfactions and no one else will.
You might be right about that.
I think that's just how this kind of thing works. I think when you're number one, it feels good, and when you're not number one, it doesn't feel good, and that's unfortunately just about all you can do.
Well, those people are moving up, I imagine.
Those people are, yeah. Well, it's like the happiness curve of top eights, where the guy who got number one and is holding the trophy looks really happy on stage, and then 2 through 5 look really sad because they didn't win the tournament, and then the guys that tied for 7th, they're like, "Hey, we're happy to be here. This is awesome." Yeah, and they're happy. So I think there's always going to be that kind of maybe there's something hidden there. Maybe that's the way we make people happy is we have more little achievements at each, because like with majors, there's top 8 and then there's winning. But maybe you need more little prizes along the way. So for the top 50 rankings, there's top 50. So you're really happy if you made it in the top 50, but then if you're kind of in the middle, it feels bad, right? So maybe there's a way to do it where I don't know how you would do it. Like imagine if you get imagine a top 8, but like if you get specifically second place, you get like a infinite Chipotle for a year or something.
Ooh.
And if you get third place, you get like a motor scooter or something. There's like some really cool special prize for every single person. Then everybody's happy. That's like the only way you can do it.
Yeah, that'd be really fun too. And I think, for people that are, farther out in the distribution, like you were talking about too, like maybe just barely making top 50 versus deeper, I think you could have things like custom Slippy skins or something like that too.
Dude,
obviously not.
I think custom Slippy skins for rankings is such a cool idea. I wish that we did more stuff along those lines. I always thought one of the coolest things that any esport did was when I heard about challenger jackets for League of Legends.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You get like a jacket.
That's cool.
Apparently, if you get into challenger, that's cool. Like what? I don't know. Yeah. I want clothes. I want cool drip for being
flex on everyone with your achievements.
Yeah, that's pretty sick, right? I feel like we should incentivize people with stuff like that, and we haven't really. We've barely scratched the surface when it comes to I don't know, little things like that to kind of set the experience apart. But anyway.
Yeah, for sure. And so to clarify, your community voice is basically the same as the previous callers?
Yeah, it's like, what is your take on the ranking situation? What do you see as the existing problems, and what would you do to make things better? That's kind of that's how I would phrase it.
Yeah, and I think that's very timely with how the upcoming week's going to go in our next episode. So I think that's a wonderful one.
I think we've got Wheat coming on potentially next week to talk about the summer rankings, and I think Wheat from Melee Stats is going to be able to shed a little bit more light onto the process and give a little bit of insight as to kind of what he sees as the pain points and the ways that we're trying to make things better for keep people incentivized. Because people love rankings, people love getting on the rankings, and I think that if they went away entirely, I think that'd be really sad for a lot of players. Things would feel a little bit emptier, but then on the flip side, people, anytime there's that urge to perform, there's also that anxiety. So I guess I'm very curious what Weed has to say about the whole issue.
The player anxiety stuff. Yeah. Well, hey, I think this is a great episode. Anything else before we go on our way, Toph?
I think that's about it.
Well, hey, thank you so much for holding it down, man. Thank you, everyone that called in, everyone watched, listened, everything else. We always appreciate your time and effort here. But for now, we will be back next week. But for now, this is going to be Radio Melee signing out.